Well, every election cycle, you probably notice, more states legalize marijuana. It could soon be legal nationwide, likely will be. But with drug abuse of all kinds soaring and American youth falling apart, is legalization a good idea? And what exactly do we know about marijuana? David Bienenstock is the author of How to Smoke Pot Properly and co-host of the podcast Great Moments in Weed History. David, thank you very much for coming on. So I guess the first thing I noticed, there was a really interesting piece this week by Malcolm Gladwell in the New Yorker. I'm sure you read it. And it asked, and he's kind of agnostic, I think, about the question of marijuana, but he made the point that we really don't know that much about the health effects of marijuana. Most of the claims made by its proponents are unproven. But the CDC does say that there is a relationship between marijuana use and rising schizophrenia rates and violence. So why should we legalize something that we know causes schizophrenia?
Well, I mean, the first thing we need to understand is cannabis is objectively safer than many substances that are legal. Alcohol, tobacco,
right.
Many pharmaceutical drugs. To get to your point about the book...
I'm sorry. Can we pause for a second? How do we know that it's safer than alcohol and tobacco, since I don't really think we know very much about it? I mean, most drugs that we've been studying nicotine for hundreds of years and alcohol for thousands, we don't really know that much about them. So why do we say we know that when we don't really know that?
We can compare the number of people who die from each substance every year. Hundreds of thousands of people from alcohol and tobacco and 0 people from cannabis. So, you know,
really?
Just as a shorthand,
no, that's
there
not.
has
That's
never
not actually
been
true.
a death attributed to cannabis. Absolutely,
really,
it's
there
true.
have been many
Saying
deaths
something's not true.
Well, I'm going to. If it is true, as the CDC says, that cannabis use looks like it causes or spurs.
What is a lethal dose of cannabis, Tucker? What is a lethal dose?
If it causes
How much do you have to consume?
What percentage of people with schizophrenia? Right. No, I'm saying you're looking at it wrong. If weed smoking causes schizophrenia, and there's a suggestion that it does, schizophrenia kills lots of people. And so does suicide, and so does violence. And if marijuana use hikes rates of violence, and it seems like there's a lot of evidence that it does, then that kills people. So the question is not do they die from lung cancer, the question is do they die from suicide or violence? And those are real questions, and you don't know the answers to them. So why are you saying it's totally safe when you don't know that that's true?
I did not say it's totally safe. That's a ridiculous standard. Strenuous exercise can lead to a heart attack that's fatal. Right. Drinking too much water can be fatal. I think you need to understand the difference between correlation and causation.
I do understand the difference.
The author of the book, apparently you don't.
No, I do. And what I understand most of all is the basic precept of science, which is we don't know something until we prove it. And almost nothing about marijuana has been proven. So why are you acting like we know when we don't?
This is what's proven to be harmful, Tucker. Arresting 600,000 Americans every year for making the choice to use a substance that's objectively safer than alcohol. And doing it in a way that targets the poor and minorities disproportionately is devastating to those communities.
But you're making
it creates
but I'm not arguing.
state.
But you're missing. I'm not arguing in favor of that. You're making a parallel argument and
so you don't want to arrest anybody for cannabis?
I'm always for unfair application of the law. I'm always for hassling people for things that aren't really bothering others. But that's not really the question. So I've never been for rousting people from their homes for smoking weed. I'm totally against that. But that's very different from legalizing it everywhere, which increases the rate of kids smoking weed. And if it really does cause schizophrenia, I should be really afraid of that, no?
Well, youth use is down in the states that have legalized, first of all. And second of all, if it's not going to be legalized, answer me this. Who's going to grow and sell this cannabis? Where is it going to magically appear from if not through a regulated, taxed industry? If my aunt in Kansas comes down with cancer, where am I going to send her to buy a safe, lab-tested medical cannabis product to save her life? In your system. Who grows and sells the cannabis?
I thought it was the U.S. government grew it in Mississippi for years, as you know. I mean,
for 7 people, Tucker. For 7 people.
Okay, I get it, but it's not impossible to imagine. Hold on.
So who's going to grow and sell it in your system?
Again, you're throwing another red herring into the argument and evading the question.
That's not a red herring.
If we use opioids legally, they're prescribed by physicians. It doesn't mean the average person can buy opium. So you could have controlled marijuana growing for its medicinal properties, which I'm willing to believe exist. I'm just saying you're talking about legalizing it, which means many more kids will smoke it. And if it causes schizophrenia, it should scare the hell out of us. But it doesn't seem to bother you because, I don't know, what, you're taking money from them or something? Why doesn't that bother you?
Tucker, you're the one on here repeating old lies, old distortions, debunked claims. The author of the book that you had on last week, everything he said has been completely debunked. I don't know if you read my article on Leafly. I assume that's why you had me on.
No.
But many of the people in the studies that he cited have gone on Twitter to say you grossly misrepresented our findings.
Okay,
the National Academy of Medicine
I'm
report,
not an expert in this.
the author said you misrepresent. You're not an expert, but you're supposed to do your job.
No.
You're supposed to learn about these things. Did you read my article
wait
where
a second.
I debunked all of this?
Let me ask you one. Let me send out one question. This is my real concern is schizophrenia because I think it's such a terrible disease and we can't cure it, and a lot of people die from it. It's horrible, as you know. Is it untrue, do you think, that marijuana use looks like it could increase the rate of schizophrenia? Is that a fake statistic? It's a sincere question to you.
I'd say, we need to know more, and we should know more, but having you and authors come on and just confuse causation and correlation does no one a good service.
I'm asking you a sincere question, and you don't seem to be interested in answering it.
Here's my sincere answer. We've had societies where the rates of cannabis use has gone way up, and the rates of schizophrenia have not gone up at all. So to me, that would put a lot of cold water on your idea that there is an epidemic of violence and schizophrenia. I thought you were just lecturing me about causation and correlation, but then isn't that what you're doing? Okay, look, it's an open. I have zero interest in banning anything. I just think that we don't know that much. I don't think you really know anything. Why did you have me on if you have zero interest in debating me?
Yeah, I was debating you. We're out of time. David, thank you. I appreciate your coming on.
Sure.